So today I was very clear with our production team and told them to watch out for my levels, especially because my loudness is probably going to come through on this episode. We have already been kind of talking as we were preparing about the things that we're already seeing in the classroom, things that we're hearing from our parents, and the position that our kids are coming in that you're even seeing, Loki. And yeah, I get a little fired up on this, guys. Why? Because if you realize the accommodations, modifications, and support services that your children should have access to, you would be pissed off too. So I'm going to apologize up front. I may come across a little bold, a little more overpowering than normal. Ooh. But when you realize the things that were put into place by our predecessors, it all comes down to why are our kids not getting these benefits? Right. You know, we see in the media now, oh, the Federal Department of Education may be going away, and parents that are so concerned about that. Well, don't be concerned about that, mom and dad. Be concerned about why your kid isn't getting the benefits they should be getting now in the classroom as it stands. You know, we went through that training.
Absolutely.
The special education boss. If you all have not seen her, if you haven't heard her, look her up. She is coming here to Puzzle Box soon. Why? Because we want our parents informed and educated. And this amazing mama has been beating the drum for over a decade because she, again, a parent that took action because her child was not being served. But what has she done? She has educated the nation now. And she has no problem telling the school system how to give the kids the rights, roles, responsibilities that they're due to. This is all access that you shouldn't have to fight for. This is access that has already been established for our kids. So we have got Megan with us today. Megan is a teacher in our Palm Bay campus at Puzzle Box Academy, and she deals with our kindergartners. I had her come on the episode today because kindergarten is a lot of times that entryway, Tracey, that we see our parents come into us. And most of the times, our parents are in crisis.
Or they have been told, misinformation. Or they are looking at the whole system as, deer in the headlights because it's the first time for them and they don't know what to expect.
Yes.
So it's really kindergarten is that first step into the school system.
But we want to talk before kindergarten. There are accommodations. There are federal funds that are available. And I should say state funds really, because that's one of the biggest caveats I want to address. We've seen it. I've been brought into it. The social media banter about the Federal Department of Education going to the wayside and then what's going to happen with our kids and what's going to happen to IDEA and what's going to happen to FAPE. Well, guys, these are civil rights. They are not going to go away. So our kids are still going to be protected. And if you actually look at the budget that goes in from the Federal Department of Education into each one of the states, the actual education budget is between 11 and 14% from federal dollars. So the impact is not going to be as drastic as the media is making it out. What we want you to get behind is why your child is not being taken care of in the public school system currently. Why changes need to take place. And they need to take place because if you realize the accommodations that were actually accessible, just like Tracey, I feel the energy there, sister. It's that because once you know,
you can't unsee it.
Yes.
Right? And that's the big thing is I think parents just don't have access to know. And they get little dribs and drabs. But when they can look at the whole picture of what's available for their kids in the public school system, what their rights are, I think that's going to motivate parents to be a bigger advocate for their children.
There's not a
Absolutely.
database for information to have for your child.
So there
right?
is, it's legal. Mm-hmm. So example, every state is slightly different. Mm-hmm. So you have to go into the state laws and regulations. And then, believe it or not, Loki, you've got to line item it. And then you've got to look to see, and you go, oh, well, how was this interpreted? And every state is different. And it's one of the reasons the federal government is stepping back so that the states can control the education in their system.
Because it's amazing of itself trying to figure out what state you're in to try to get the proper education. And then if one thing changes and it's like the social media kayfabe thinks like, oh yeah, we're going to do this to education. So you got to recheck the entire laws of your state again.
Yes, okay. That's exactly it.
Because I was sort of being confused on the entire intro. I'm going to be completely honest.
No, that's okay, bud.
But summarizing it like that gives me more of like a better way to look at it.
So one of the things that's very popular right now in the social media realm is a lot of people are doing reels and they're doing shorts talking about how Trump and Dodge is going to remove the education system.
Yeah, fake news just to have people talk about drama and such and just spread hate around
I think it adds more panic to the parents and the chaos. And now they're already dealing, like you were saying, in crisis. Now add that on top of it. Now they're going to the public school system and they're not getting they're being misled, right?
Correct.
So I think it's a fear that's being placed that's unnecessary. And as long as, we can advocate and get it out there for everybody to know what's out there and available.
Absolutely.
That's the important thing.
Well, just like Megan in her classroom, when you have your parents that are coming in, you've seen some of the individual education plans that come in with the students, whether they're coming from a VPK program. And that's something parents, I want you to focus on, is that this just doesn't happen when they're 5 or 6 entering public school. You can request a review of the child as early as 4 when they're in the preschool program. This is the school readiness that all counties in the United States have access to, whether they call it birth to 3, school readiness. They also have the VPK program, Head Start. There are all of these unique ability programs that our children have access to, and it doesn't matter if they have any type of neurodivergence. This is simply education. What is the biggest thing you see currently, Megan, in the kindergarten classroom when you are looking at a parent bringing a child into the school for you?
If we're looking kind of like a student who's already been in the public school system and transferring into my kindergarten classroom,
yes, I've
had a lot of students who start kindergarten and the parents feel beat up. The student feels beat up.
Yeah.
It's a sad thing to see. I've had parents come in and I've been trying to get him an IEP, but the school's saying we don't do this and we don't do this and this and the other. And I just want him to learn. I just want them to be in class, and I don't want to get a call every day to come pick up my student.
Absolutely.
And so it's really just a feat, because parents have these high hopes for their student, no matter if they have exceptional abilities. Exceptionalities. That's what I was going for. Exceptionalities. And it's kind of like before they've even got to the start, they're already defeated.
Yep. Well, let's tell our parents. What's the typical age of a kindergartner?
5 to 6.
Do you hear that?
5 coming in.
5 to 6. Mm-hmm. So 5 to 6, the parents, and Tracey and our old heads here, we're like, yep, we got it. Hasn't changed in over a decade. Mm-hmm. By the time the child is 5 or 6, the parents have already been told that their child is not hitting levels. Their child is not attending the way they should. The child is not this, is not this.
Hold on, wait, I'd like to say the way they should is a very...
You nailed it. That's why we're making we're funning with this, making fun of it. Man, you've got me tongue-tied this morning. Yeah. But no, Loki, for you to chime in, you are dead on it. Who? What are you judging this kindergartner by? Right. What is the 5-year-old norm?
What is, like, you can't...
By this time, they should be doing X, Y, and Z.
Because also, I do want to bring up, like, at Puzzle Box Academy, there are certain times where certain kids go into certain classrooms because they're underdeveloped in, like, reading, but they're way high developed in math.
Yes.
It does not matter that, like, if they have, like, a very bad reading comprehension, but they're excellent at math, that shouldn't still bring them in first grade. If their strong suit in math, if their strong suit is in math, you should bring that level up a notch so that they can work on their expertise and not for it to get dragged down by their reading comprehension. Sure, you can't just forget about it entirely, but that's why we have certain like classes dedicated just to say, hey, sure, you may be good at math, but we're going to bring you back into this to help you with like trying to read like various words and stuff. It's like you don't need to have a classroom that's a Swiss Army or
we're all tongue-tied today.
A Swiss Army knife for every single class.
Yes.
It's not cookie cutter, right? And I think that's where the public school system puts kids in these boxes, and this is what they're supposed to look like. And then when parents get the information that their child's not meeting those norms or not meeting those benchmarks, instead of giving them resources and things to help them, it's just, okay, this is where your kid's at. We're going to hold them back, or they're not going to be able to do this. So instead of giving them what they need, now parents are even more of a, oh my gosh, now what do I do?
Okay, can I bring up one more thing, because I know that mom is most likely going to have another way to segue this into like an entirely different thing, talking about the education system. I know I see that face.
Well, the face is, I'm so happy, because what you were able to formulate right there is exactly what I've been building for the last decade, is that you, number one, you grow with the child. The child leads, and then you are there to fill in the blocks into the pieces as this child-led education goes. Just like you're stating, we don't hold the child back. You continue to allow them to grow and glow. So we have those things. But Loki, in other systems, in other school systems, in other even clinical systems, the child is held back until they can do baseline across all platforms.
I would want to say one thing that's bouncing off of that. The one thing I'd also like to say, the report card. You see, I'm not saying report cards are bad. They're not like the root of all evil. They're a grade signifying the progress that they've had in the in the entire classroom.
Right.
There's usually 5 sections dedicated to each subject.
Okay.
However, what I don't like is how unifiable they are, because either you get all O's and then some A's, or all S's and some A's. It's all one word, when in all reality, if there's nobody's ever going to be perfect. I think an uneven report card is more genuine than just having one letter, because if you get all O's, that's great,
right? Okay,
but if you get all A's, where there's no
so you hit a very good point. In management, especially, that's where's Dr. Manny? OBM side coming in is, so when I do performance evaluations, and Tracey's like, oh, thank God, I know Pam doesn't have to do mine. But when I do performance evaluations, and I'm going to say, in the multiple years that I have been managing teams, I very rarely will give a 5. And a 5 is like excellence. You've mastered that skill. Because I was raised under the Franklin Covey methodology, and that there was always room to improve.
Yes.
Same thing with what you're saying, is that parents, I think, Megan, they have a misnomer, is because they do look at the report card. And you are right. If a parent comes in, and I can tell you, we have to look at them when kids come in.
Okay.
If you see a report card and everything is A.
Johnny was a pleasure to have in class.
Johnny doesn't speak.
Right.
Johnny's progressing well. Well,
Johnny doesn't write.
Johnny has not said a single word in the past 3 months.
Johnny.
What do you mean? I mean, I would like to know.
Exactly.
Especially if they're coming from the public school system. I tell parents, give me everything you've got. The good, the bad, the dirty, the ugly, I don't care what it is. Tell me everything about your student. I want to see the whole child.
Yes.
Because everything has an impact on each other. Mathematics has an impact on reading. Reading has an impact on math. So I want to know everything about your student. And I think it's important for teachers to remember that you are not just there to instruct. You are there to help that student grow, and you are there to advocate for the student who is if a parent is in crisis, they might not always be ready to advocate for their student.
Absolutely.
And if you are there every day, and I'm there 8 hours a day. So if I'm there 8 hours a day watching this student, I have to advocate. That's just in me. But I think a lot of teachers, especially now, they start to feel kind of beat up, and it's like, they just don't have the power to do it because there's this whole big system against them. And I'm looking at this from like the teacher in the system.
Yes.
There's this whole system that like I've got to go through the checks and the balances and this and then that and then this coordinator and this coordinator and this coordinator and this person's busy in a meeting and this person's in a meeting and oh, they're too busy in a meeting. And it's really easy to get lost in the sauce.
And then you get tired, and then once you get to the grading, you go like, all right, this was fine.
And that's where you start to see teachers just kind of like, okay.
And I agree with you. There's too many boxes to check, right? And as a teacher, you're in it. You're in the trenches every day. So who better to know that child besides the parent? Not someone that's coming in on a team that's just looking at a piece of paper and reading what's going on. You have to live it, feel it, show, tell, do. Like,
correct.
You have to have everything. You have to be immersed. And if you're in a system that's broken, where you don't have people that are immersed
where
to
everything,
know these kids.
Where everything is a 4 out of 5, and there's no explanation of how to make it a 5 out of 5.
Well, the other part that you nailed is when we are looking, we are blessed. And I'm going to say this because if I would have had an advocate like the special education boss 15 years ago, I never would have opened Puzzle Box. Never. But I didn't have the information or someone who would fight as hard as I would for my child. And you are 100% right. At Puzzle Box, probably the first 3 to 6 months, we are de-escalating, reinforcing, and coaching our parents because they have been brought to us destroyed, devastated, guilt-ridden, with no hope at all. It's, oh, well, Johnny isn't meeting expectations. Johnny should be doing this. Johnny is delayed in here. Johnny should. Johnny, instead of, well, what does Johnny do that's good?
And
or how do we,
another
like...
big thing that I see very often, too, is just no feedback at all. Your child has gone so under the radar that your teacher has nothing to say to you but, yeah, he's a pleasure.
Yeah, and then that's the focus of the teacher, not focusing on the child enough.
Well, you had that. You had that, Loki. You, as a little boy, and I'm not saying that you're a very handsome man.
Little boys and young.
Loki was very quiet, non-behavioral issue. You can remember this even going back. So non-behavioral issue, but no vocal expression at all. So Loki was the kid that was in the classroom that you didn't even know was there. He never caused any problems. He didn't mess with anybody. He would just basically skate by.
Do my work and then...
Well, even then, most of it was being brought home where we had to redo all of your work, reteach it. And it was because they didn't even know he was there because their hands were full with the behavioral children that were in the classroom. High ratios.
So it's a whole system problem because I would hate to be the person to be like, that teacher.
Correct.
Because it's always the circumstance that they're given.
Wow.
The best. But sometimes it is the teacher.
I can tell you this. We know someone who does advocacy, was a public school system teacher, actually wrote IEPs for the public school system, but then learning the information that's truly there between the IDEA Act and FAPE and understanding what an IEP really should look like, they're warded away from that in the public school system because more accommodations, more income needed to provide those accommodations. You know, this is where my soapbox, Tracey knows because I get really fired up on this one. When we look at the budget, and because I'm an administrator, which is the part, man, I'm a teacher, guys. For those of you all that have been with me for a while, they know I love my kids. The admin is just part of what I have to do. But when you're on that side, you realize, Megan, 65% of the budgets that go into the school board sit in the school board administrative building.
Yep.
That money doesn't make its way down to the teachers. It doesn't make its way to the principals. It doesn't make its way. 65% simply sits in the school board building.
And a big part, and as we've learned this, is that, you know, general education teachers are being required to do special education services. Yep. And the problem is that they don't have the training or the skill set. And it's not for lack of trying. I do feel that a good majority of teachers genuinely do try, but when you're inundated, like you said, with those high student ratios, with those behaviors, what are they going to do?
Now let's cut it. When the IEP states that that child is required to have a special education teacher, that school is given dollars in order to provide the special education teacher. But they're not. They're being given a gen ed teacher. Now, this is the soapbox, guys. Let me get the purple pillow out here for a second. How many of you all in the public school system currently have one-to-ones with your children? If your child has a neurodivergent superpower, and that little wonderful monster is a little too much energy in the classroom, and the teacher cannot handle that child all day by themselves, have they asked you to bring a one-to-one into the class? Has the school provided the one-to-one? If they've not provided the one-to-one, yet they still state that your child needs that one-to-one, why are they not in a self-maintained classroom, self-contained classroom?
It's super important to look at. We're in this really big era, especially in special education, of like least restrictive environment, inclusion.
Gen ed classroom with a one-to-one. But that makes no sense.
That's not inclusion, and that's not the least restrictive environment. Sometimes a self-contained classroom is what's best for that child.
Yes.
In that season of their life.
They have to build up skills before they can transition into generalized education. And here's the thing, IEPs are written for academics. What about functional skills? When a student has to go into a special education classroom, it may not be for academics.
Correct.
It is for functional skills. How can they be successful in a gen ed classroom? And then you have these teachers trying to manage, or they're not able to meet the needs of that child because they're just pushing the academics. We have to move away from looking at, yes, academics are but how is a child supposed to learn in a gen ed classroom when it might be overstimulating for them?
When they can't even get, if they can't even listen to anything.
Right. You got it.
And I wanted to say...
So, hold on real quick. Okay. I want to bring so Loki yesterday went up to our early intervention campus, and it was so funny that here we are doing this, is that last night, and Loki, we can't talk about names of students, okay? One of the students he was working with yesterday is just that situation, has very little to no verbal communication at all. So for him in an academic, not in a clinical, in an academic, he's like, Mom, what do I do? The child doesn't have any vocal stereotypy, doesn't have any expressive language, and I'm basically playing and I don't feel like I'm getting anything back from her. And so that, to me, is exactly what our gen ed teachers, just like when we were talking about before, we don't want to throw the book at the teachers, because it's really not. It's the administration there to support our teachers.
Yeah, not giving enough credit towards people that are dedicated to help towards various things, and just are treating general teachers as their pawns to say, well, there's an issue, put that thing over there.
Yes,
right?
Well, do you remember when we talked about burnout?
Yes.
So we have got all of these amazing gen ed teachers that give their heart, their soul to these children. Megan is one of them. Megan, though, is a special ed teacher. She has been trained to look at our children in a different way than a general education teacher. So if you take a gen ed teacher and you put 30 kids in her classroom, and out of those 30 kids, 10 of them should all be in a self-contained classroom, but they're not being put in there with a special ed teacher. No wonder we have what's called the teacher short out. It should be the teacher burnout, because we're underpaying our gen ed teachers to provide a service to our beautiful future. And the reality is that the administration is not properly staffing those classrooms. And if you tell me that it's because they don't have special ed teachers, I call.
And usually, what I see, especially in our public schools, those one-to-ones, those aides, those paraprofessionals who are very integral to these classrooms are underpaid as well.
Oh!
And they're doing a lot of
Let me tell you, the public school system in Brevard County, for a paraprofessional that goes into the school system, is paying chump change above minimum wage.
Yeah.
Now, the next part. This is why I'm telling you, it's not a shortage of people that love our children. It is a shortage of the administration paying those people a livable wage in order to take care of your kids.
Yeah. And a big thing when we talk about protecting your passion, I think that's when you start to see educators and professionals they start to build that resentment for what they love.
Yes.
Because now it's like, what's the point of me doing it? I go home every day and I'm burnt out and I can't do this
you
anymore.
feel
miserable
and you can't even like...
I'm floating by.
Right.
And that's where you start to see that resentment build up, and that's where you see the mistakes and the cracks start to fall through.
Well, in my book, the dancing principle, the principle that I love that we grew together through Loki in elementary school, she's doing real estate now. I'm not sure if she listens to this podcast, but if Miss M, I can't say the name, you follow me, in order to keep protection and privacy, but your principal at your elementary school, public elementary school, I'll tell you off air, she's now selling real estate. And for that reason. And she was the best principal. Granted, she had some things to learn, but that's what principals do when they learn and they coach and they go with the families to learn and to become a better principal by learning through your students. But because of the system and the cycle, she's now selling real estate. And that is an extremely huge loss to our educating system. Why? Because that is what's happening to all of these passionate, loving, caring individuals that the system has destroyed.
No supports, no resources.
No advocacy.
No advocacy.
Right, but see, if they're destroying the teachers,
who's left?
What's happening to our kids?
What is there going to be left?
Yep. So, well, we've had this little thing now on the couch. As we end the episode, we send some tips and tricks to our viewers. So I'm going to start with Loki, then I'll go to you, Megan, and then Tracey, and then I'll close up our episode today with a little bit of tips and tricks about how to encourage. I want to make sure that these are positive thoughts that we can leave our viewers with, especially when things are so chaotic right now in education. Loki, what is a tip that you would give our families? And it has to be positive.
Oh, to the families or to the teachers?
Both, either or.
Because I'm just going to say it right now, the education that teachers give out to students, even though they cannot verbally say it most of the time, but their parents will always appreciate the effort you put into like the world. Because it's not like going to be like, oh yeah, no, firefighters and policemen give support to the community. Oh, we're so wholesome and all of that. No, parents will give you all like the praise that they know that their child is getting the correct education from you if you're doing a great job at it. And I'd say that in of itself is motivation just to keep on doing what you're doing. Please know that people are going to know that their child was supported by you.
Very nice.
I don't know.
No, teachers need to hear that. We go home sometimes burnt, and exhausted. And so knowing that we're making a difference is sometimes all we need. What about you, Megan? What would you share with our families today?
Well, for our teachers, I would just say, you're a good teacher. And that's the sentence. I mean, take it how you'll take it. Find your community. Find who's going to support you. Find who will coach you. Find who will build you up as a teacher.
Find who will give you good pay.
Personally, my sister worked for the public school system, and now she's working in Madrid. And Madrid gives her good pay.
There you go.
And she's teaching in Madrid, so find who will give you good pay. But for our families, I think something that's been really big for me, especially as a special education teacher recently, has been students with complex communication needs. If your student has complex communication needs, support them in every way. Give them access to any sort of language. That way, when you're sending them off to school, they can come back from school and they can tell you what happened at school. I think it's super important for them to tell you, like, yeah, I didn't really have the best day. And like, well, why didn't you have the best day? And it might be as simple as like one word, but access to communication is so important, and advocate for your student to have communication at school. Advocate for it everywhere. I would say behavior is going to decrease. Complex communication needs. Serve it.
Preaching.
Yes, she is. Get on the pulpit, babe.
Ask your teacher, can you send home anything for this? Can you send home this? Can you do this at school? Can you do it? Just communication is key.
It is. It is. So Tracey, what would you tell our parents? We've been doing this a while now.
Don't silence your voice. I think for me, parents, like you were saying, get beat up. And they think that, everybody that they're going to has the best interest sometimes, but your gut.
Yes.
And I think if things are not working the way you think they should be working for your families and for your children and their needs, you have a voice. You have to be their advocate. And there are teachers that are going to listen, and there are systems in place.
Yes.
And I met a family yesterday, and they didn't use their voice, and it broke my heart because they beat themselves up because they took the advice of the system that they were in. And I just say, don't silence yourself. And we are here to listen and find your village, because that village is going to help you conquer.
I love that. And you're not alone. That is the biggest message I want to give to all the families, all the caregivers, anyone that is tuning in today. Please understand you are not alone. Even if you're in Wisconsin, if you're in Washington, shout out to Allie, my girl out there in Washington State right now. If you are in Maine, if you are in Georgia, if you're in Kentucky, if you are anywhere where my voice can be heard, you can email us. info@PamelaFurr.com. You can click the like, you can click the subscribe button, you can reach out to us. My team is your team. My goal with this entire podcast and with Puzzle Box is to make sure that no family is ever left alone. We are all a community, and we are here as a village for our kids. Until next time, we'll see you soon, families. Bye.